everybody, this is Sherry at djsundry.blogspot.com, and today I have a super simple card for you. No Cricut cuts, no real special techniques, just super simple, and it's going to be a masculine card. So let's get started, and first I'm going to show you the items that we'll be needing. First of all, I will be using my 3 Girl Jam bow maker. And I have a couple of different stamp sets I'll be using. From this TPC Studio stamp set that I got, the Card Crafting Happy Birthday that I've used several times. I'm actually using 2 stamps, and we'll get to that. And then from the Stampers Anonymous Visual Artistry stamp set from Tim Holtz, I'm using Life's Possibilities, and I'm using this big timepiece in the corner. I'm also going to be using my archival black ink pad, my Versamark ink pad, and this is Antique Linen Distress ink on this card. And then everything else is just ribbon and paper. Now the ribbon I've chosen is this from this pack from 3 Girl Jam. It's the Ice Blue and Hot Chocolate. And I don't know about you, have you ever had just a perfect plan in mind? You can see it in your head, and then you can't find the paper you need. Well, that's what happened to me today. I wanted to use my brown ribbon, but this was the brown paper I had, and it looks okay, but I just wasn't thrilled with the way it looked, and I could not find, I really wanted some of this brown paper, but this was the only piece I had, and I can't make a very nice card out of that piece. So I went through my scraps, and I ran across this piece of paper. This is from My Mind's Eye. And if you see this side, it's from one of the Lost and Found collections. I can't remember which, and it was a scrap that was in my scrap bin. And on this side, it has the pattern pieces and the glitter. And this side, it just has a tone-on-tone embossed kind of dark floral motif. And this is actually a card for a male, but I decided I didn't care because it matched my brown better. This is what I wanted to use. So let's get started on the card. So what I did is, obviously I'm not going to layer those 2 browns together. Now that brown will be on the inside, but on the outside I cut my solid piece to be the same size as my card base. So this one's 4 1/4 tall by 5 1/2 inch wide, and that will completely cover the inside. The outside. Now I'm not using any ribbon on the inside, so when you open it up, it will have a different brown. I'm okay with that. I think it will coordinate well because the dark brown ribbon won't be showing on the inside. Ideally, I would have had the dark brown paper, but I don't. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adhere this dark brown piece. I'm not doing any stamping or anything on this particular piece. But because it is becoming a base, I need to use plenty of adhesive, and then lining it up is going to be interesting. Now the funny part will be when the recipient gets this, because that side's glittered, they're probably going to be wondering where in the world the red glitter's coming from, because I'm sure it's going to end up all over the card. Okay, so there we've got our base. And I'm just going to set that aside for a minute. Now for the inside of the card, I cut a piece of vintage cream cardstock from Paper Tray Ink at 4 inches tall by 5 1/4 inches wide, because the brown is going to be too dark for me to write on. And I could write on it with black or white, but I just decided I wanted this to be the base. And then I have this paper. Now, I don't know where I got this. I just got it at a scrapbooking store, and I actually today got it out of my scrap bin. I love this paper, and I've saved every piece of it that I can. And this is just a tiny strip. I cut this strip at 4 inches, or 4 1/4 inches tall by 1/2 inch wide, or maybe it was 3/4. Let me measure it real quick. I can't remember now. Yeah, 1/2 inch wide. And that's going to go on the side. Now, before we do that, I'm going to take my stamp. This is my timepiece stamp. And this is where the Antique Linen Distress comes in. It's not going to be a true tone-on-tone, but it will be have a tone-on-tone feel to it. And it was the best match I had for the vintage cream. There's that red glitter again. I told you it was going to be everywhere. And this is right side up like this, and I am just going to put it up in the corner. Now, in this particular case, some of it's going to be off the edge of the paper. I don't care. I just am wanting it to just have a subtle, I'm going to be tying in the front of my card to the inside of the card. And the way I'm doing it this time is by using, first of all, this motif here, and then also by using the stripe paper that I'm going to be using on the side. Now, the first sentiment stamp that I'm going to be using is this one, May This Be the Best Year Ever. And I am actually going to just stamp that right over the top. And I'm going to be using this archival ink. Now, I've put off buying this for a long time. I wanted to buy it, but I didn't want this huge one. I wanted it in a normal stamp set size pad, but I've not been able to find one at any of my local stores. So finally I just decided, forget it, I'm just going to go ahead and get this big one. And I know this is going to be a pretty stark contrast, but this is also what I'm stamping the front of my card with, and it's not going to be as much of a contrast, but I just wanted to tie in those colors as well. And I have to tell you, this stamp pad is so crisp and so clean. This may have just become my favorite sentiment stamp pad. It did fabulous. Okay, so now I'm going to take my strip of paper and I'm going to just adhere it. Boy, I've even got glue on my, or glitter on my ATG gun now. That's fabulous. All of my projects are going to have glitter on them for the next few days. Now, the reason I chose that archival stamp pad to purchase is I do have a few of the Tim Holtz Distress markers, and everything that I've seen says that that archival one is the best if you're doing color blending, because it stands up to the water that you might use to color blend your distress markers, and so that's why I chose to go ahead and get that. And I have to say, it is a beautiful image. So now this is going to go on the inside of our card. And where'd I put it? Oh, it's right here. See, it already threw me having that different base on it. And just line that up. Definitely a masculine card. This is for my nephew whose birthday was about a month ago. I'm really late on him. I've got a lot of projects I'm late. Now that nice heavy paper tray ink, really this brown cardstock is not as thick as I would like. It's just what I happen to have right now. And add that nice heavy paper tray ink and I'll have a good solid base. Now I have plenty of room to write my sentiment there. And now let's move to the outside of the card. And this is where I'm going to have some fun. Now, the first thing I want you to notice is you can see I've got some of the waste here that I didn't trim off. And here's a tip. I am going to be butting this clear up to the edge like that, so it doesn't bother me at all that this is waste, because you're not seeing it anyway. So I saved a little bit more of my cardstock. This is a blue from the Tim Holtz Distress cardstock, and so I'm just covering that up. Now this size is kind of tricky. Normally I would do a 5 1/4 inch wide by 4 inch tall. However, this piece of stripe paper that I had was only 5 1/8 inches wide, and so I did my card base to go the 5 1/8, which means you're going to have a bigger side-to-side margin on from my card base than you do top to bottom. But I decided I did not want to trim that because of the next techniques I'm going to do. So we're going to set the card base aside, and now I'm going to pull out my Versamark pad. And this is where I'm going to just kind of have some fun and kind of create my own cardstock, or my own technique, or my own background paper, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So I'm going to ink that up really well. It looks like I have a hair in it. It's either mine or my cat's. I think they both shed. Okay. Now, this Tim Holtz is really textured on one side and it's smoother on the other side, and this is that Sanding Coordinations paper, and I really want to use the smooth side because it's going to stamp a better image. And what I'm doing here is I am creating my own tone-on-tone background paper. I think the camera should pick that up. If not, hopefully my other photograph will, but I'm just creating kind of at random here, putting them on, and I was going to go with 3, but I think I'm just going to go with 2. So it almost looks as if that's the way it was designed to go. Let me clean that off because Versamark is kind of gooey. And I'll probably have to get my stamp cleaner out to clean that eventually. But at least we'll start now. Okay, so now we have that. And now I am going to put my pattern paper. See how that covers that up? And that's exactly what I wanted it to do. I wanted it to look as if the background paper came with the little timepiece. And of course you and I both know that it didn't. But I bet my nephew will never know the difference. He'll just see it there. And I'm not going with a lot of images on this card. That really is my subtle hint piece. So now I'm going to take my happy birthday, and again I'm going to use my archival ink pad and ink that up really well. Now this is kind of a big block, and this is where I have to be really careful personally. I am really good about rocking my stamps, and I'm dropping them. Ooh, that was a good save. And I do not want to rock my stamp because I want a nice crisp image here. And I'm just settling that down, and it says happy birthday, just like that. And I probably should have gone up just a little bit higher and put it more in that blank space. I didn't think of that before, but I think it'll still look good. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to take a piece of this chocolate ribbon, and remember I've started using that 3 Girl Jam bow maker because I have trouble tying bows. So I'm just going to take a piece of this, and I am going to cut it just a little bit. No, I changed my mind. My original plan was to go with a crinkle and just really crinkle it, since it's the crinkle ribbon, and that would add a little bit of texture. But I like the cleanness of this card the way it's coming through. So I'm just smoothing it out and cutting it off, and then we'll pull it around to the back and lay down the back here. There we go. And this card is actually getting very close to being done. I think it honestly took me longer to find all my papers than it took me to make this card. I had a hard time finding my papers on this one. There we go. And now I could just leave it. I think we're going to tie the bow, but before I adhere it, we're going to look at it, because I may change my mind and decide I don't want the bow. I may just want the plain old, just clean lines of the ribbon. Now remember, using the 3 Girl Jams, I'm going to go with a small bow. No, I'm not. Let's go with a bigger bow. So remember, we get our ribbon, go around the back. I probably should cut it. I try not to waste any more ribbon than absolutely necessary, especially of my favorite ribbon. So I like to not cut too much. Bring around, cross it around to the back, up, around, and tie it in a knot, center, and we're done. And there's our bow. So what do I think? I'm going to go with the bow. I know it's a masculine card, but that's okay. I still like the bow. Let's see. Let's use the Tombow to attach the bow. Perfect bows every time, especially the simple bows. The more complicated bows take a little more practice, but they're still much simpler than trying to make them on your own. But the simple bows are perfect every time. This is just a fabulous tool. And no, I do not work for 3 Girl Jam. It's that fabulous of a product. I just highly recommend you getting it's very inexpensive, and it's just a great little tool. Alrighty, let's go a little bit more off here. Cut that off. And this is the hot chocolate ribbon. Is the one this one's called. I've managed to crinkle that quite well. Can't get my fingers around it. There we go. Okay. And then as that glue dries, it will dry clear and you won't even be able to see it at all. So there we have a very simple masculine card. Yes, masculine card with a bow that says happy birthday. And then on the inside it says, may this be your best ever. May this year be your best ever. So I can get this in the mail to my nephew and it won't be any later than it already is. So thanks for watching and come back soon for more projects and ideas. Have a great day.